Yun. Magandang gabi. Magandang gabi. I hope the sound is okay. Do let me know if the sound, if we have issues with the sound. Magandang gabi. Ako po si Trixie Cruz-Angeles for Luminous. And our discussion today is 3 topics. First is Megawide. The second is what are we doing wrong in education? And third, well, this is a new one. Apparently, Congressman Mike Defensor has a statement saying na, the battle lines have been drawn, the lines have been drawn. Speaker Velasco had unceremoniously removed him as chairman of the Committee on Accounts. And he has something to say about that. Actually, what he said was Merry Christmas. So, that's our, that's our topic today. So in the meantime, magandang gabi sa inyong lahat. I hope you're all doing well. Oops, sorry. Hi kay John Roque, Feli Hudan, Melo Marcos, Rebecca Bolasco, Dalia Basilio, John Roque, Jad Alieo, Bernadette Cortez, Rosalie Tapnio, Dulce Isip, Todora Lay Asan, and Jigs Bigayan, and Ma'am Bernadette Cortez. Magandang gabi. Okay, let's get started. First, what's going on with Megawide? Well, tomorrow at about 1:30, meron tayong Senate hearing. Now, alam ko, a lot of you think that, oh no, what a waste of time. But I think this one should be interesting. Diba? I think that given what has just recently happened, there's a movement, and we're happy sana that, well, finally somebody's going to rehabilitate the NAIA without necessarily the baggage of what the consortium was asking for before. A little bit of history here. Noon, may proposal na i-rehabilitate itong NAIA by a consortium of about 7, maybe more, mega corporations, Ayala, MVP's Group, several others. Ang hindi kasama dyan, conspicuously, of course, Ramon Ang of SMC, because he was proposing to build the airport in Bulacan. Now, naging parang football ito eh. The NAIA the consortium that wanted to rehabilitate NAIA was presenting a very onerous proposal. No, ibig sabihin ng onerous, pabigat sa gobyerno. Halimbawa, ang sabi nila, take over sila immediately, pero ang timetable for the rehabilitation, plus maglalagay pa daw sila ng mall and all of that, they would take over right away, mangongolekta sila ng fees, and take note malaki ang fees na nakokolekta ng NAIA. They would start collecting, kasi billions yan eh. And then they won't start the rehabilitation until about 4 years after. Plus, sabi nila, there's no need for Bulacan Airport kasi magdadagdag kami ng runway, pero we won't start doing that until 15 years after during the phase 2. So, unahin nila yung mall. Pero, before they even think of the mall or even think of rehabilitating the terminal and probably adding high-speed internet, mangongolekta muna sila. And, that's not hindi yan pipitsugin na amount. So, medyo, something's wrong here. Ka-adjust natin to. Okay. Yan. Better. So, what they did also was they kept trying to, at least this was what Conrad Banal and Jojo Robles were saying even before, when Jojo was still alive. They were saying dun sa Karambola was that they were trying to block the Bulacan Airport so that they would look so good in their proposal to rehabilitate the NAIA. Ang problema, hindi na enough. Yung number of runways sa NAIA, which is a grand total of 1.5, there's a second runway but it's short. So basically, you have one runway servicing how many flights, local and domestic. So they were trying to stop the Bulacan Airport because they were saying, sige, we'll promise another runway and all of that so that they would be given the NAIA immediately. Okay, eventually, the president saw through that kasi suspicious siya dun sa ibang mga members dito sa consortium na to eh. Kinaaway na niya dun sa ibang utilities, i.e. tubig, di ba? Telecoms and all of that. So sabi ni Pangulo, eventually, the Bulacan Airport got the go-ahead. So ngayon, namatay na itong project na ito na rehabilitate ng consortium itong NAIA. Nag-withdraw sila ngayon. At least several others, including especially Manny Pangilinan's group, they withdrew from that proposal. Ngayon, nagyaya ngayon ng presidente, parang nabuyo yata ng presidente. He kept praising what had been done in Cebu na nag-submit tuloy ng unsolicited proposal ang Megawide. After having done such a good job in Cebu, nag-propose sila ngayon, sige, kami mag-undertaking to. Ang proposal nila was not onerous, unlike yung sa consortium. They wouldn't take over right away. They would do the rehabilitation right away and then take over. In other words, walang perang ilalabas yung gobyerno pagdating dito at hindi mangongolekta kaagad ang Megawide. Di ba? Much better proposal. They would manage the airport after that so that they could offset what they had spent for that plus a reasonable return on their investment. So, maganda yan, di ba? Maganda yung proposal. Okay, originally, they had made their unsolicited proposal. It was vetted by the DOTR and eventually endorsed. Pero, biglang sinabi ng DOF, teka, hindi pwede. Kulang kayo ng assets, kulang kayo ng capitalization and all of that. Within 24 hours after the DOF said that, nag-file ng parang motion for reconsideration, but it's not a case, so it's not really a motion. But inexplain kaagad ng Megawide, no. This is the amount. You're not updated. So here's what we have. Okay, na-satisfy naman yan. So far, they retained their original proponent status. And suddenly, yesterday, out of the blue, biglang sinabi ng Manila International Airport Authority, they are now withdrawing the original proponent status of Megawide. But they did not say why. Okay? Now take note, the Manila International Airport Authority, or MIAA, is composed, has a board. And on that board is the DOTR and the DOF and all of that. Now, it was the DOF who originally was saying na, hindi pwede yan, hindi pwede ang Megawide, kulang ng capitalization, kulang ng assets, ganyan. Kailangan maraming assets yan para if anything goes wrong, then then at least they have assets to answer for that. Pwedeng aksyonan yung assets na yan. But the DOTR, tapos parang dun sa statement na yun, pinagalitan pa nila yung DOTR saying, bakit hindi nyo in-examine ng maayos? So, ngayon, the MIAA is saying, teka muna, withdraw namin yung original proponent status. Now, can they do that? In theory, they can. However, they can be open to a lawsuit. Bakit? Because once an original proponent status is granted, the next thing you do na is start preparing for the project. In other words, merong binigay sa'yo. It cannot now be taken away without due process. So, in other words, if the MIAA is not explaining and not giving Megawide an opportunity to answer, meron tayong problema at maaaring makaladkad ito sa hukuman. The problem is, the riding public, yung mga taong gagamit ng airport na yon, gusto ba natin yung magtagal pa ng ganon kung pupunta pa yan sa hukuman? So, tomorrow, merong Senate hearing. And I think that this might be a good opportunity to find out, wait, what happened here? Kasi all of us are in the dark. Di tayo sure eh. We're sure Lolo Art won't do anything to the detriment of the public. Diba? We've not disagreed with Lolo Art yet eh. Probably about Angkas, but not so much. Pero, in other words, Lolo Art is a lawyer. Alam niya yung ginagawa niya. Plus, he's a trusted person. Trusted by trustworthy person, trusted by no less than the president himself. So, these are two things that we'd like to clarify. What is going on with the MIAA? Why have they not bothered to tell the public an explanation? Why did they not give Megawide an opportunity to answer if there were some issues regarding their status? So, itong mga to, itatakal yan bukas. And ako, handa natin yung popcorn. Parang masaya to. Masaya to. Okay, magandang hapon kay Rodrigo Rosales. He's from Torino, Italy. Pag-like po ng live, thank you po sa mga viewers. Sabi ni Ma'am Judy Erica Corpus. Sabi ni Captain MP, watching kami from Macau. Ng father ko, pabati naman si Sir Robert Roldan. Okay. Ayun, shout out kay Sir Robert. Ah, magandang gabi. Teka, yes, nakahabol daw si Ma'am Marites. Watching from Canada si Fladeline Sabiano and Ma'am Lily Rose says, good evening. Sabi ni Senator Risa, sabi ni Sir Melo Marcos, natatakot siya kasi daw yung NAIA project beyond the term of PRRD, na bobo na naman siya. Totoo yan. You know, there's nothing wrong with starting a project that will end in the next term. I mean, that's the purpose of continuity. That's why yung ating, civil service, yung ating civil service laws and all that, the law abhors a vacuum, sinasabi natin yun. Ibig sabihin, yung especially in positions, hindi maganda yung kulang yung positions kasi nga we want to have continuity dito sa ating sa pagbibigay ng serbisyo natin. So, Madam, I really don't understand why she's saying that. Okay? Meron akong nakita dito na na dapat sinagot ko. Ayan. Sa G and Gian, our autism journey, paano po nangyayari na ang isang congressman ay kayang i-block ang ganyang project? Ano po bang batasan nakapaloob dito? Hindi po namin sinasabi na si Congressman Nograles ay solo na nagbo-block dito. Siya lang po siya yung spokesman Siya yung talagang maingay dito sa pagtututol. In fact, ngayon ang problema si Cong Nograles lang ang nakikita natin, hindi na natin talaga nakikita yung tunay na puwersa dito sa likod niya. O kaya sa likod, because I don't think that you can very easily get a project pulled out, particularly from somebody who's already granted an original proponent status. Di ba? So, hindi natin sinasabi na si Cong Nograles ay nag-iisa. In fact, ang hinihikayat natin dito, teka, magkaalaman nga tayo. Sino bang nasa likod ni Cong Nograles? If any. Hi kay Michael Cochesa from Calgary. Magandang hapon. Salamat kay Amico Padjakero. Nax. Kanino pong committee ang maghuhold ng hearing? Well, it's Public Utilities, Grace po. Shout out from Riyadh, si Ma'am Gemma. Good evening, si Fernando Cabrera from Sharjah, UAE. Sabi ni Paul Nimeno, sanay na sila, referring to Senator Ontiveros, sanay na sila sa canceled projects ni Noy Noy. Si Ma'am Gloria is watching from Melbourne, Australia. Sabi ni Jimmy Ituriaga, yung problema sa NAIA, pera-pera lang yan. I wish you'd be a senator in 2022. Yeah. Saya-saya natin dito Si Marlon Malinay is watching from Rome, Italy. Kahit kanino yung project, ang importante matuloy ang pagsasaayos ng NAIA. Agree naman ako dyan. Kaya lang, if biglang tatanggalan mo ng original proponent status yung isang tao na nabigyan na, matidelay na naman yan. Kaya nga, I want to find out. The NBI daw filed the case against Megawide for the anti-dummy law. Wait, it's not for this project. It's supposedly for the Cebu project, which, by the way, passed through so much already. Ngayon, I have a feeling there's something missing here. Hindi ko nakikita kasi yung complaint pa ng NBI. Bakit nila i-consider na violation ng anti-dummy law ito? Maybe it's a misreading of the corporate sharing requirements dun sa ating saligang batas. Kasama niya siguro si Nadilon. Sabi ni Fladeline Sabiano, yes, kasama niya si Senator Drilon, I think Senator Villanueva and Senator Gatchalian. Pag Senate hearing, walang patutunguhan sa Kongreso, dapat kay Marcoleta hahawak, sabi ni Jigs Bigayan. Alam niyo, I always like to think that we can give the Senate the benefit of the doubt. There are times naman talaga na, okay naman. Like for instance, we're not very fond of Senator Hontiveros, but we're grateful that she actually had the hearing on the pastillas issue. Diba? Thank you kay Ma'am Lauren B. Watching from Hong Kong, si LV Castillo. Sabi ni Ian, thanks. Grace po hearing pala to. Sabi ni Ella Marie Asuero, magandang malamig na gabi from Hong Kong. Uy, ang Team Hong Kong nandito. Merong member ng gabinete na behind kay Nograles. Opinion ko lang, sabi ni Victor Tadeo. Oo. Bakit ang dami nilang ganap? Puro na lang hearing, sabi ni Clarence Anthony. Alam naman, malapit na mag-eleksyon. Kayo naman. Keep safe and healthy, sabi ni Ma'am Susan Tin. Okay, so moving on. Okay na tayo dun sa Megawide. By the way, nakikita ko kasi sa comments dito sa Luminous, tuwing pinag-uusapan natin itong airport rehab, may hihirit, palitan muna yung pangalan. Ngayon, sige, sabihin na natin, palitan nga yung pangalan. Sino ba dapat ang nagpapalit ng pangalan nito? Ay, Kongreso po ang magpapalit niyan. Ang executive po ang nagpapabid, mag-set up ng rehabilitation, on all that. Pero yung nagpapalit ng pangalan dyan, Kongreso po yan. So, kamusta naman ang Kongreso? Have they been acting on this? No, they have not. Diba? And as if naman they will, I think they still consider this a political hot potato. So, hindi pa muna nila gagalawin yan. Sabi ni Amy Raquel D. JP, kinig lang po bago matulog, watching from Japan. Uy, andito na rin yung ibang members ng Team Japan. Sabi ni Sean Morata, hindi kaya demolition job to ng Megawide dahil natalo ang Mega Consortium sa NAIA? Posible. I think that's one of the theories. Or at least hindi yung buong consortium, baka isa or ilan members dyan sa consortium na yan. Sabi ni Benedict Corpus, I'm wondering, what's the real priority of the Senate? Nagiging platform na lang para magpasikat and mamulitika at the expense of government funds. Oo, but I am not opposed to having a hearing this time. This time, I think that it is important. Patatagalin ba natin ang rehabilitation ng NAIA? Seriously lang. Di ba? Sabi ni Ma'am Christina Almosura, concern kasi talaga si Grace sa transportation, sayang yung business class sa airport. Grabe kayo! Sabi ni Victor Gloria, hi sa mga pro Velasco dito. Merry Christmas sa inyo. God bless. Watching from Corpus Christi, Texas, si Maka Cornell. Sabi ni Captain MP, on another topic, do you have an opinion about sa bill na pinasaan ng Duterte Youth sa lower house? Final, hindi pa po pasado. I haven't read it So, mahirap magbigay ng opinion. Nakakahiya naman kung mali ako. Although, if it is returning the Anti-Subversion Act, that might get stricken down by the Supreme Court as being unconstitutional. Okay? Yes. Kasi basically what that does is it punishes a person for association. And you can't do that. It's in the Bill of Rights. The freedom of association is in the Bill of Rights. So, kahit galit na galit kayo dun sa mga mga associated groups dyan sa CPP, NPA, mere association is not a crime and should not be made one. It will violate the Constitution. Okay? Huwag naman po kayong ganyan na you want to punish people by association. Para kang nagpunish ng isang taong nagpa-picture sa isang tao na hindi pa masama at the time. Diba? Huwag naman ganyan. It's really not fair. The freedom of association is guaranteed by our Constitution. Kaya nga, tinanggal yung Anti-Subversion Act. Sabi ni Flaydelin, hindi ba pwedeng ma-expel ang mga kabatayan black? Mukhang makakalimutan na natin yung isang topic natin. Pero sige, kamatayan black. Kasi nga sayang lang po ang sahod nila at budget nila, gagamitin na lang nila para sa ibang project. Pwede po silang ma-disqualify if they have committed crimes. Kaya nga po, kinasuhan na ng NTFL ang Gabriela para sa revocation ng kanilang registration certificate. That is the way to go. Okay? You can't expel them from the House unless an ethics case has been filed against the individual congressman. And even then, if the party list is still qualified, they will just replace those congressmen with other members of their group. Okay? The way to go is to file disqualification against the party lists themselves. Ngayon, yung mga magsasabi dyan na tanggalin na kasi ang mga party list. Again, hindi po pwede kasi nakagaranti yan sa saligang batas at may batas din po executing that provision. Pangalawa, hindi per se masama ang party list. Si Cong Mike nga, member ng party list. Congressman Marcoleta, member ng party list. The very reason they're in Congress are the party lists. Ngayon, once you decide na wala na lang party list, you're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. It's too extreme. Okay? Si Roel Delfino nagpapa-shoutout. Sabi ni Bobby Fajardo, I am for the hearing this time, but with Grace Po's reputation and how she conducts her handles, hope this time there will be results. Ako, I'm not, hindi ganun kainit ang dugo ko kay Senator Grace. I'm disappointed in how she handles some of the things, some of her hearings, the lack of resolution in the other hearings. Siyempre, these are cause for concern. But alam mo yan, we can always hope. Sabi ni Anime Girl, good evening, she's watching from Dawis, Bohol. Uy, ganda niyan. Naganda rin yung simbahan ninyo dyan sa Dawis. Madalas ako dyan dati. Anyway, para dun sa hindi po nagla-like at share, don't forget po to like and share this video. And kung hindi pa po kayo nagla-like and follow sa Luminous, don't forget to do so kasi as you may know, minsan tina-target tayo. So, check nyo din po kung naka-like and follow pa kayo sa Luminous, and please get other people to like and follow Luminous. Like, comment, and share continuously. Yung ibang mga tao, napansin niyo, nahihirapan sila mag-share ng Luminous. Yan po ang, how do you call this? Targeted, concerted, inauthentic behavior on the part of FB. Diyos ko. Si Ma'am Christina Hermosa, Attorney Nick explained the Duterte Youth Bill sa tambayan kanina. Maganda yung explanation niya kasama yung history. Yun. Sabi ni Roldan Ranoco, sana mapasa na lang sila ng bill, nakakasuhan ng mga magpatigil ng proyekto na ready for implementation. Kakasuhan. Well, that's a better one. Sabi ni Ma'am Imelda, okay daw ang audio ko ngayon, malakas at malinaw, watching from Singapore. Ma'am Gloria Anquilio says, finally watching your live. I'm your fan and Camrambola fan. Magaling kayong tatlo. Merry Christmas po. Ay, Merry Christmas. Okay. Sabi ni Paul Nimeno, mautak lang talagang NPA. They found a way of infiltrating government. Yes, but for every way that they can find, there has to be a solution on our end. But the solution should not violate the Constitution. Okay. O yan, si JB na yung nagsabi, para mag-segue na tayo to education. Bakit po kaya nangungulelat ang Pilipinas sa education? Sa teacher po ba ang problema o baka maraming dagdag na trabaho sa teacher kaya di sila focus sa tuto? I think it's not just one factor. Marami po yan. One is, of course, ang daming ginagawa ng teacher. By the time madadating sa pagtuturo na, ay nahihirapan na. Siyempre, pagod. Ang dami-daming pinagagawa, ang daming reports, meron ka pang lesson plan na sinasubmit so many days before. Ngayon, lalo na ngayon sa pandemya, gumagawa pa sila ng modules, ng materials, ng kung ano-ano. They have to be available for consultation ng mga parents. Kailangan nakatutok sila and, paano pa yon? Pagka problema pa yung connection nila sa internet, paano kung super bagal pa yon? So, yes, that's one. The other is, we don't have that many hours where our kids are not spending as many hours in the classroom, especially public school kids. They're not spending as many hours in the classroom as their counterparts the world over. The average number of hours a student goes to school in most other countries is 44 hours. Tayo, half of that at 22 hours per week. The longer you're in school, the longer there is time for you to learn. Okay, that's one. Sabi ng iba, mother tongue, but I disagree. Kasi the mother tongue policy actually, it makes it easier for our kids to learn kasi they don't have to learn a new language at the same time that they are learning the subject matter. So, in the early grade, subject matter lang. And then you introduce another language, by this time it is English, and you keep your medium of instruction at the level where they can understand. So, kung Taglish, dapat tanggapin na po natin na realidad yan ng komunikasyon. Ano pa? Well, I think the upgrading of the standards for the teaching of science and math needs to be reviewed. Bakit tayo nangungulelat? Samantalang ang curriculum nga natin, how do you call this? Yung parang yung curriculum nga natin is already geared towards science and math. Binawasan na natin ng history, art, and all of that, health. And then kinumpul-kumpul natin sila, lahat yon sa isang subject. So there's less time for anything else. And supposedly, there's supposed to be more time for science and math. The other is that may history din po kasi ito. Kung mapapansin niyo, there was a time talaga. And that's part of the reason. Nag-gear tayo yung ating education towards more vocational courses. Kaya yung K-12 na yan, it's supposed to make you ready so that the kids can start working, particularly in vocational courses, immediately after high school. And in some, ituturo na yung vocational courses during the senior years para pagka-graduate, ready na sila for the workforce. But, are we preparing them to be working here in the country? No. The curriculum was evolving in order to create more OFWs, more workers for export, because that was the policy in the late Marcos years, all throughout the Cory years, and especially into GMA's years. So, ang idea natin before was to create workers for markets abroad. That is why yung education natin is less into the liberal arts, less about things like English, wala nang depth. And it was supposed to gear itself in the early years towards science and math, and then later on evolve to VocTech, vocational technical na na courses. Hi. Dogs. Okay? So, and as we went along, in case hindi nyo napapansin, lahat ng humanities binabawasan, history binabawasan, even literature binabawasan. And while we learn English, the purpose of learning English was because our workers need to be able to communicate abroad. So, yun yung purpose, but that shouldn't be a nation's purpose. We should be educating everybody so that they can be useful nga to society, and not just useful for the purpose of and not just for the purpose of serving other countries. Hindi yun yung dapat hinahabol natin. So yeah, that's another factor here. So inaral ko talaga to, matagal ko nung tinatanong itong tungkol sa sa education natin, at bakit ganun yung nagiging subjects pabawas ng pabawas, napagalitan yung dog. Si Yoshi yun, si Yoshi. Si Harry kasi pag mag-isa dito, hindi masyado yun demanding sa attention eh. So yun yung so I think that especially yung K-12 na yan, it was supposed to make it easier for our students to go into VocTech. And even if, kasi marami sa atin, to be fair, it was to balance things out. So many of our students like to be professionals. Sino bang may ayaw, di ba? Become doctors and all of that. And others become lawyers, others become accountants and all of that. Everybody wants to go to top tier, to the very few go towards the vocational technical, and we have very few of those. Most of them, they go abroad. So parang to balance things out, dito pa lang sa high school, i-encourage mo na sila mag-vocational, because we do need workers like that, and also they're very in high demand abroad. But, we're not producing students for a specific purpose. We should be educating. In other words, first we equip everybody for living day to day, for being able to operate in a world that is increasingly technical, that is increasingly sophisticated. Yung mga kababayan natin might not be able to cope with this kind of fast-paced changes dahil kinukulang tayo dito sa edukasyon. Parang kinukulong din natin sila. Because all of us, di ba, as a matter of course, ang Pilipino, naniniwala tayo sa edukasyon. Edukasyon ang liligtas sa atin sa kahirapan. Edukasyon ang mag-guarantee ng magandang kinabukasan and all that. Pero what kind of education are we being given? Are we sacrificing too much para lang makatapos yung mga bata? Diba? Parang minamadali natin sila masyado, shortcut natin masyado, when in fact, education is not about shortcuts. Sabi ni Mind Freak, hi, paano naman po ma-minimize ang pag-hire ng left-leaning professors sa mga state-run universities and colleges? Sobrang dami nila kasi they act as advisors, student recruiter. In UP, it's not the professors who recruit. They give us opportunities to go to rallies, that is true. Kasi sa amin, education comes in many forms. It's not just in books, it's not just in reading, it's not just in the classroom. Punta ka sa rally, you learn certain things. Doesn't mean that you have to spend all your days there. Pero maano talaga, may leeway talaga for joining rallies because youth is the time to experiment with different kinds of thoughts and ideologies. You can still make your mistakes while you're young. Pag malaki ka na, pag tumatanda ka na, you become more and more conservative. Ngayon, pag-hire ng left-leaning professors, I don't know kasi if there's a test to determine that, one. And two, I think that might violate the Constitution when you are preventing certain people from getting jobs simply because of what they believe in. Diba? There's a guarantee of that. Your politics or even your thinking should not be the reason whether you're going to be denied a job or not. So that's just plain wrong. Ngayon, in the United States, napansin na nila na parang yung mga, this is not just here, ha? It is all over the world, that the tendency is for professors that get hired in university tend to be left-leaning. But, for instance, in UP, hindi naman yung professor na nagre-recruit yung mga estudyante. Pag pumasok kayo dun sa mga orgs, dyan na po nag-uumpisa yan. Pero sa classroom, hindi. It's not really the professor. So, yung sinasabi niya, act as advisor sa student recruiter, hindi rin kasi yung mga faculty advisors namin, it's like pro forma, minimal yung kanilang supervision. And like we said, how are we going to stop recruitment legally and constitutionally? If the recruitment is towards, that's why we have the anti-terrorism law, diba? To prevent recruitment into the declared and proscribed terrorist organizations. That's why we're working towards getting the CPP, NPA, NDF proscribed as a terrorist organization. Automatically, wala na, or minimize yung recruitment dyan because now it becomes a crime. Right now, recruitment into any organization, especially if there is no coercion, is perfectly legal because, we have the freedom to associate. Okay? Don't mistake our preferences for law. Okay? Just because you don't want recruitment into the front organizations to happen doesn't mean that we can make laws or rules that will violate the Constitution. And even if you say, pangit itong Constitution natin, the Bill of Rights is not likely to be changed. The Bill of Rights has evolved from so many years of jurisprudence. We have learned, that's why we put them in there. Sabi ni Benedict Corpus, would you also consider na factor po why we have low education, the training ng teachers from their undergrad up to the time na nagtuturo sila? That's also possible. Yes, that might be another factor. But so far, I don't know. I'm not sure, I know that there's so many good teachers out there, but they don't get to teach the way they want to. Or I think also that we are over-regulating our teachers. Gawa kayo ng lesson plan. We need to see what you're teaching. Para sa akin, can't we just set goals? I used to teach nursery school. Okay? Yes, I did. And I also taught in university. Ang hindi ko pa natuturo everything in between. But in nursery school, you set a goal. For instance, you tell the parents by the end of the school year, your child will be reading. Okay? By the end of the school year, he or she will be able to add simple, small amounts up to, let's say, 20 and all of that. Will be able to count, add, rudiments of subtraction, and an introduction into multiplication, something like that. So that's what we used to do. You set the expectations, you set, this is what the student is supposed to learn. Ngayon, parang ang nangyayari is, sige, we set all of these rules for our teachers, and then we set everything seems so regimented, naawa ko sa mga teachers natin, is that some of them, they know how to teach. They know their students, but they're regimented in particular kind of teaching method. So, I'm not sure. I think that we have been overthinking so much, and that we've been putting in so many rules and so many laws, when the fact is that kids will learn if the teacher knows their students. And I think that we should give them enough leeway, enough freedom to be able to teach in their own way, basta we can set particular goals. Sabi ni Prodigal Son, 22 hours per week, pero sa amin sa Cavite, mostly whole day ang pasok, 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. Are you talking about private schools or public schools? Sabi ni Fladelin Sabiano, correct, dapat mas i-priority nila science at math, yung makabagong pagtuturo. Yun nga ang pinaprioritize nila ngayon But is it helping? No, it's not. In fact, ang nangyayari is, we can't even create people with love of country because they don't know their country. They don't know their country because they're not taught its history, not taught its heritage, not taught its culture. Whereas the teaching of local heritage is mandated also by law. It's in RA 10066, the Heritage Act of 2009. Sabi ni Roldan Ranoco, dapat grade 1 to 3, behavior building. But yun na nga that's what I'm seeing here, is that we have so many suggestions and so many rules that our teachers are buttonholed into something. That's one factor that I'm seeing. Sabi ni Mercy Capistana, alaga ko dito, HK grade 3 pa lang, meron na silang periodic table of elements. Very advanced talaga sila dito in math and in science, obviously. Reading comprehension and critical thinking, wala na, puro rote learning na lang. I'm not sure, but yeah, I think you'll see that in aptitude tests. Diba? Ako concerned ako na tinanggal nila yung ano ba yan, yung aptitude test para sa college aptitude test, ACT or something like that. Kasi hindi na natin ma-measure kung ano yung natututunan ng mga anak natin, and di ba, wala tayong quantitative measurement of what they have learned and not yet learned. Sabi ni Edville Padayhag, in education, dapat yung teacher expert sa subject kasi most of the time they don't explain it well. I have to explain it to my kid where my kid understands it thoroughly. Well, the teacher, they're trained in their subjects. That's why certain teachers, dun pa lang sa College of Education, tinuturuan na sila to what point. Kunwari, if you're going to be a science teacher, you do have your biology classes, you do have your physics classes and all of that. You do have to know your subject in order to teach it. Uy, sino nagbigay ng email? Thank you kay Ma'am Michaela. Yan. May lumabas na video ukol sa pagkapataw sa inyo ng suspension. I don't talk about this. I'm not allowed to. Does the ICC have jurisdiction over Philippines and also have police power to investigate Duterte over EJ case? Thanks. Watching from Lancaster, California. Napag-usapan namin yan sa Karambola kanina. Yan. Napag-usapan po natin yan sa Karambola kanina. Ganito yan. Yung complaint na submit na sa ICC at the time when we were still a member, nag-withdraw tayo afterwards. So, yun. Yes, it does have jurisdiction. However, paano nila isa-serve yung warrant? Yun yung problema nila. Also, they might not win the case at all because as long as the judicial system is working here, ay, Mama Ani! As long as the judicial system is working here, you can't have foreign intervention yet. That is what it means to be a sovereign country. Sabi ni Ma'am Loida, I saw you in YouTube, proud of you. When I was in high school, sabi ni Ma'am Joan, We start at 7:30 up to 12:30, then lunch for 1 hour, continue with Chinese classes at 1 until 5 p.m. We still have additional math in the afternoon. Ganito yan there are many trends in education. Halimbawa, in Europe, pabawas na pabawas sila. Like, they don't do homework anymore, they have less hours na lang, and all of that. So, yung sa kanila, because the information is so available also, the kids are taught how to get the information na lang because they have very sophisticated libraries, they have internet, they have all of that, and they also have they have more time. So yun yung nila. But here, we don't have that many libraries. The kids have not learned kumaga, educational stuff is not coming out too much out of our TVs. Information and educational and cultural materials are not readily available. So a lot of the learning happens in the classroom. And if we fail them in the classroom, meaning if we don't give them enough, the kind of learning that they need to survive, then it's us. We're the ones who fail. So we try different trends. So right now, ang nakikita natin is spiral learning. You learn basics, you add on every year. That gets added on. So in grade 1, basics, addition, subtraction, multiplication, and all of that. And then in the second year, advanced, you advance on what you already learn, and then you start learning divisions and all of that. And then you build. In other words, you build from the basics. You learn the basics at the start, and then you repeat that in the next grade, and then you add, and then you repeat again, then you add and you add until you build up all of. So that's the new method that they're using. In a way, it's a more organized version of what we used to do anyway. You're taught in grade 1, ito yung level, and then in grade 2, the assumption is you know all that, and so we teach additional. So they just kind of modified that a little. The problem is nga, if you're not teaching them enough, even if you have good teaching methods, but you don't give them enough information, what are we going to do? Diba? Nagkaroon ng tracks, tapos pagdating sa college, pwedeng kumuha ng de-aligned sa tracks. Oh, that's another thing. Sabi ni Michael Alava, pag makalusot po ba ang batas na anti-subversion law at anti-terror law na inihain ni Congresswoman Sardenia, may possibility na ba pong makulong ang Makabayan Block? Bakit po yun yung you don't make a law specifically to put people in jail, to put certain people in jail. Class legislation yun. Yeah, guys, what we try to do every night, that's why we do live, is try to explain to you the concept of how our laws look at being fair. Kasi even if we want these people in jail, we want them in jail for existing crimes. We want them in jail because the things that they're doing are wrong. Hindi yung, ito ginagawa niya, o sige gagawa ako ng batas para yung ginagawa niya magiging krimen. I don't really think that's fair, di ba? Is that fair? What we want to do is to make sure, ako for one, I want to equip our PNP and our AFP with the ability to investigate well so that they can come up with evidence and be able to charge them with crimes. Okay? We need to be able to fix our legal system so that it will be easier for our law enforcers to gather evidence and make sure that it's the kind of evidence that stands up in court. But we don't want them also in a position where they can invent evidence or plant it or do things like that. Every time we come up with a law or do something or change our policy, we have to make sure it is fair, even as against the people we are angry at. Because someday that law can be turned against us. That's why it should always be fair, even to people we don't like. Sabi ni Phoenix Jimenez, ethics should be a subject in high school to prepare future leaders for good citizenship. Well, all of the subjects, I think, have good intentions. But this is where creative teachers also come in. Yes, we can learn, for instance, this is good, that is bad. Most of us have gone through catechism or some kind of religious instruction, and we are all taught what is good and bad, but sometimes that's not enough to stop us. I think the right and wrong is inculcated culturally. It's in the home, it's in school, it's in all of that. So in fact, if we're taught in school, but you don't see it executed in the house, or you see it happening all around us anyway, what is the motivation to do the right thing? Sabi ni Roldan Ranoco, oo nga, binabawasan ang history at na-retain ang pagkabayani ni Cory at Ninoy at pagka-best president ni Noynoy. I agree on that one, yes. Sabi ni Betlo G, isn't it against conduct and ethics na leftist prof sila pero nasa state universities? No. If you're in a state university, you can think whatever you want to think. And in fact, the guarantee of academic freedom is that you can teach whatever you want to teach. The school, of course, will prescribe the curriculum. The school will prescribe, what should be contained in particular subjects. But how to teach? No, that's academic freedom. And that's one of those things that we are given the freedom to do. Schools and universities are given the freedom to choose their students, to determine who is going to stay, to determine the kind of what they're going to teach, and who is allowed to teach it, as well as who is allowed to learn it. Kasi parang ang lumalabas sa sinasabi mo, Betlo, is that being leftist is wrong. It's not. Okay? You have to understand that we must be free to think. That's the one thing the law cannot reach into. It cannot reach into our minds and say, you can't think like this. We're not, the whole idea, para kang musmong, that's also how we develop. That's how we become more intelligent. Kapag binubuksan natin yung isip natin sa iba-ibang pananaw. Sabi ni Lenny Fermin, but allowing them to join rallies in exchange for high grades is wrong. Why? Who does that? In UP, you're allowed to go to rallies, or in certain, if the prof wants you to learn, for instance, through the speeches that are being conducted in the rally, or even to experience the rally, you will be given credit for going there. Pero yung high grades for a rally, are you saying that's in a state university? Is that UP, and we have evidence of this? Kami, we were encouraged to go. Because part of our education is to be able to undergo through these kinds of experiences. I'm not defending an atmosphere that gives rise to the kind of people who go subversive or who go into insurgencies and join the insurgencies. But ultimately, we choose to commit crimes. It's not the fault of another person when you choose to commit a crime. Diba? That's why the age of a student, of a person's criminal liability is important. After 18 years old, if you choose to take to the hills and pick up a gun and start shooting, it isn't your prof anymore who will be liable for this. You will be the person who picked up that gun. The person who will go to jail will be the person who picked up that gun, not the professor who opened your mind to this possibility. Diba? Sabi ni Ma'am Christina, dapat makinig sila dun sa tambayan kahapon kasama si Osam tsaka si JP. Ang ingay ng dog ko. Tungkol sa UP, maraming madidispel na maling impressions. Sabi ni JR, correct on overregulating teachers. Sabi ni M. Carlos, Metro Manila is still on GCQ, meaning bawal pa gathering. May penalty po ba sa mayor if she allows na magkaroon ng rally sa nasasakupan niya? Sa UP Diliman kasi laging nagrarally. Wala pong jurisdiction na po ang Quezon City government inside the campus. Whether that campus is the Ateneo or Marinol or UP, wala pong jurisdiction sa loob ng campus. That's not a public place for purposes of regulation by the Quezon City or the local city government. Sabi ni Theodore Ginocchi, kailangan talaga i-revamp ang education system. Di sapat ang K-12 program dahil yung infrastructure at teachers kulang na kulang. Sabi ni Mindfreak, can we go back to the time of Rizal na ilang taon lang, 2 or 3 courses na kaagad natapos for a short period of time? I think people were different then and the education was geared for the needs of the time. I think our problem here now is that we're not sure what we're gearing for. Hi, thanks Ma'am Michaela. Sabi ni Betlo G, our curriculum is very repetitive. Elementary to college, my algebra is it useful, palitan na lang sana more units ng Philhistory and GMRC. Spiral nga yung teaching method, di ba? I explained it. You build up, build. You, basics repeated plus, plus, and onward. Yun yung teaching method na ginagamit nila ngayon. Di ba ang UP ay state-owned by the government? Bakit ang mga militar na gusto mag-campaign at magsilita, hindi pinayagan para ang nagmay-ari ng UP ay NPA itong... Okay. Trying to think how to break you out of that mindset. First of all, any educational institution must be open to all kinds of thought, whether it's leftist or rightist thought. However, the rule on academic freedom is it is the school that chooses who gets to teach, what to teach, and who gets to learn. So, a school is free, whether it is UP or any other university, huwag niyong pag-initan ng UP because that rule is a rule in all universities. They can say no. Okay? Yung nagsasabing walang ROTC sa UP, meron po kaming Vanguard. It's elective. Okay? Hindi siya required. Kasi wala nang batas po that requires ROTC. We're waiting for it to be passed again. May mas atupag pa ata ng mga bata TikTok kesa books. Let's not blame them either. I don't think it's fair. We need to teach them how to like reading. Reading is constant decoding. It really sharpens your brain. The problem with everything that's being online, minimal na yung reading at saka nasasanay yung mga bata, even as adults, nasasanay tayo na online yung basa, umiikli din yung attention span natin. Ako, I found it very, very difficult to read books. Nung pag matagal akong online, tapos hindi ako nagbabasa ng libro, nahihirapan ako mag-maintain ng attention span required to finish a book. Samantalang dati, isang upuan, 3 oras, 4 na oras, nakakatapos ako ng mga nobela. Sisiw lang yan sa akin. It gets harder the longer we are online. So, that's another thing. Maybe we also have to make sure our kids don't start too early sa ating, sa yung electronic, sa mga gadgets. Sabi ni Ma'am Annie, number students din siguro dito sa HK, napaka-konti nila in each classroom. I agree with that one. Give me 2 seconds. Okay. Be right back. Stop it. You have to be quiet. Be quiet, Yushi. You can't keep doing this. Okay. Next topic na, sabi ni si Zanzi. Yes, next topic is, well, of course, itong kay naglagay si Cong Mike, he issued a short statement kasi bigla siyang pinalitan as the committee head of the Committee on Public Accountability. Ito na po. Okay? And sabi ni Cong Mike, he was always willing naman to give it up, to resign his position if because the speaker really is given the prerogative to reorganize or to change the committee heads and all of that because the speaker is presumed to have to be exercising the will of the majority that voted him into position. Okay, maliwanag yan ha. So sabi ni Cong Mike, willing naman akong i-give up. Pero parang bigla-bigla na lang nalaman niya, ni-replace na pala siya. Hindi man lang siya binigyan ng pagkakataon na, Cong Mike, papalitan na kita ha, iuupo ko si ganito. There was nothing like that. And so, clearly, sabi ni Cong Mike, the lines have been drawn. To be fair, ang sabi pa nga ni Kong Mike, okay, and this is what I'm going to say to you, Merry Christmas. Pero, alam na niya. Okay? Why are we discussing this? Kasi exciting to eh. Kasi, until before this, ang nagsasalita lang before was itong sina Elway, who of course was given a lot of, how do you call this? A lot of power under the former speaker. But si Kong Mike, while he did enjoy the trust and confidence of the former speaker, he has always been, hindi siya nagsalita during the transition. Of course, he fought for the former speaker. Pero once na-establish na si Speaker Velasco, he pretty much kept decent and civil and quiet about it. Yung ibang mga natanggal sa deputy speaker position, merong ilang nag-ingay, kung Mikey Romero, and of course, Congressman Elway, Kong Elway, from, holy cow, I forgot suddenly kung tagasan si Sir Elway. But anyway, they did grumble. Pero, they also had, yung opportunity na, I mean, they saw it coming. Itong si Kong Mike, sinabi naman niya, pwede naman ako mag-resign. Bakit bigla niyo na lang ginawa to? Come, sir. Thank you. So, parang, tingin ko dito, before, Speaker Velasco was enjoying a period of relative quiet. He had a free hand. He was reorganizing. Nagdagdag pa siya ng mga speakers. Ito yung nakikita ko dyan eh. Yung pagdagdag ng mga speakers, ng deputy speakers, ano yan eh, parang concession yan. Parang bumibili ng loyalty yan. Yeah, this is exactly what the former speaker did, no? Bibili ka ng loyalty, sige, bigyan kita ng ganito. Yung iba nire-retain niya kasi same. O sige, kasi shaky yung leadership niya, di ba? It was very contested. I think he won by how many, there are a lot of people who were solidly behind the former speaker. Now, in order to do this, in order to keep the peace and to keep his leadership stable, he has to make concessions. And those concessions are the additional deputy speakers. And yung ibang mga chairmanship na binibigay niya. Now, Speaker Velasco cannot afford to make enemies. Even if, the president, for example, tinira na niya yung allegedly Makabayan bloc, o yung mga communist congressmen, tinira na niya. Speaker Velasco came out strong for the 6-member block. So, ang tingin ko niyan, ang basa ko niyan, is ganun ka-shaky yung kanyang leadership. He cannot afford to lose a solid block of 6 members. Diba? That's what it says. That's what his actions say. But, for some reason, he could afford to make an enemy out of Kong Mike. Now, I don't know if that was a miscalculation on his part. So, para tong chess game masaya yung susunod na kabanata. Diba? Sabi ni Lito Keyboard, wag mo na lang ako batiin, good evening. O sige, hindi. Sabi ni Ian Abelia, naging hanash na lang yung may additional grades kapag sumali sa mga rally, pero wala naman yata talagang proof. Sabi ni Carlos Cruz, dapat po malawak ang nalalaman ng isang tao kung ano man po ang pinapasok niyang ideology. Sabi ni James Castro, where do you draw the line in teaching and brainwashing? Well, first of all, you have to tell me if it is the professor who's doing it. Diba? Brainwashing. Indoctrination into the ideology, it doesn't happen during recruitment. It happens pag nasa bundok na kayo. So, how is this an issue? Diba? And no, we don't get to choose. We don't get to be the one to say na, hindi mo pwedeng ituro yan. Hindi ka pwedeng lumampas dyan. Ito yung line and you can't cross that. No, you don't get to tell the teacher that. Because, like I said, hindi niyo ba napansin, kaya nga our students aren't learning, our teachers are so regimented, dadagdagan niyo pa ng isa pang concern. Diba? Sabi ni Jason Beslig, maraming salamat. Gabi na pala, pang Tina lang to. And thanks for the updates. We always appreciate your opinion. Sabi ni John, parang may hinuhukay yung dog niya. Hindi, kumakatok siya dun sa door. Ayokong papasukin. Ngayon na pumasok na tahimik na siya. Sabi ni M, thanks watching you and the Karambola and Tambayan Gang daily from Germany. Uy! Dito students po, the kids in first learn to imagine, explore, and invent rather than read and write. Oh, that's another thing, di ba? Bakit? Creativity can be trained. We can train kids to be creative and that's something that we need to also do. Di ba? Kailangan inventive ang mga mamamayan natin. So we also need teachers who are also inventive. I don't know the solution to this, but I think it is worth talking about. But I don't think we should burden our professors and teachers with an undue concern about what they are teaching, particularly when it comes to the isms, communism, socialism, et al. No, our professors are, it's very rare that you'll find a professor actually brainwashing a kid. That happens in the hills. That happens somewhere else. We need teachers who are able to inspire our students. And if you're going to regiment them and be unduly worried about this or that, I think you should really stop blaming the professors here. And start blaming the communists themselves. The people who are doing the recruiting, those are students. The people behind our communist congressmen, the people who fund the communist insurgency and therefore are driven to recruit students. Huwag na po natin pakialaman yung mga professors. I mean, it's not, of course, it's possible that they do in instances, but I don't think that we should place so much burden on all of the teachers simply because we're worried that one or two actually participated in recruitment. Sabi ni Carlos, sa school po, lahat naman pong ideologies pinag-aaralan dahil lahat naman po yan isip for the good of humanity. Correct. At the very least, we understand how other people think, how the thought processes go, what kind of proposal they were making. We may not agree with that kind of proposal, but we at least have to know that this is one of the choices. K-12 is good, sabi ni Chacha Pamor. Di lang siguro na paggandahan na maayos, lalo na sa teacher training aspect, not to mention sa resources siguro. Pwede. Kapag pumalit si Atienza dyan, alam na this, sabi ni MLA walkthrough. Deputy Speaker na po si Cong Lito. What happened to my dog? Yoshi. Sabi ni Prodigal Son, the problem is he was not voted by the majority in the House. I think mas okay magkaroon ng kudeta sa House to oust him at bumoto ang totoong may number sa House. Who says he wasn't voted by the majority? I think that's a really bad presumption on your part. That might magulat kayo dyan. Sabi ni Hannah09 Sanchez, pinagpapalitan na po siguro kasi preparation sa pagpabalik ng ABS. Diba, ilang beses na natin sinabi at nagsalita na rin si Cong Marcoleta, hindi po, not in this Congress. It's not likely. Huwag niyo naman pong i-overthink yung ABS-CBN kasi parang ang lumalabas, bilib na bilib kayo sa sobrang power nila. Kung ganun sila kalakas, they wouldn't have gotten out in the first place. Diba? They would have been able to stop the move to deprive them of a franchise or to deny them a franchise. Masyado kayong worried, sa totoo lang. Sa totoo lang. And itong worry na to, ibig sabihin, ABS-CBN got to your mind. Yosh? Saan na naman yung dog ko? I can hear him, but I can't see him. 1 minute. Sandali lang. Yosh? Yoshi? Where's Yoshi? Yosh? Ay, hala. Iyak na iyak eh.
Sino si?
Si Yoshi yata ng corner ng cat.
Bakit naman siya sa taas?
I don't know. Well,
Saan siya dumadaan?
I let him in because he was knocking down the door. Okay. Yan. Naku, kaya pala lakas ng kumpiyansa ni Lito at Yansa na makabalik. Grabe guys, why are you obsessing over ABS-CBN? Seriously. Di ba? Ibig sabihin, yung kanilang yung kanilang, yung kanilang propaganda, dun sa magbabalik ang ABS-CBN, naniwala kayo? Guys, they really even testing you on that. They monitor these comments. They monitor comments you make on social media. And if you're worried, they know that their propaganda is working. Kaya, sabi ni Ma'am Christina Hermosura, kulang kasi tayo sa pag-like and share. Kaya yung iba, nasway sa NPA. Kung exposed yung kabataan sa ganitong diskusyon, di hindi sila madaling mauto. You know what? Okay, this is something that we used to do when we were in college. Dahil malalayo pa yung mga malls, kubaw pa yung ganun na ako katanda, okay? Malayo pa yung mall at the time, kubaw pa. So, in the university, wala pa yung SM Norton. Sa university, a lot of our time we spent discussing. We'd talk about politics. We would talk about, sometimes our subjects. Bakit ganito? We would talk about existential angst, things like that. Things that you rarely will be able to talk about as adults later on. Stuff like philosophy. We'd talk about, is there any proof of the existence of God? These were our topics, and we would talk about things like this under the acacia tree or in the sunken garden and all of that. There was time for these kinds of discussions. We read because wala pang internet at the time, and we were semi-isolated. It's an island, and malayo pa yung mga malls. And even if we did go watch a movie in the malls, it wasn't there. It wasn't that easy to go to the malls. So distractions, really, the problem with our kids isn't our kids. It's that we have created so many distractions for them. The internet is both a blessing and a curse, because the same thing that brings the gaming also brings you a lot of information. This is not the world that we grew up in. This is not the world that taught us anymore. Our kids go through so much more traffic, more pollution than we ever did. They have so many more distractions, so many more concerns. They get bombarded, and they can get anxiety attacks if they paid attention to every single cause that's brought to them straight into their living room, straight into their bedrooms by the internet. So, that's something that we also have to consider when we consider our kids. We can't blame them. This is a different world. Dapat i-introduce sa mga kabataang Pilipino ang libro ng Sophie's World author, Justine Gardner, para ma-introduce sila sa summary ng world history, religions, different ideology of different countries. I think that we can start with our own kids, or the kids that we know. I don't know how easy it is still to get them into reading if they're always immersed on the internet. Diba? Like I said, iba yung stimulus ng internet, and it's harder to concentrate on the written and printed word in an actual book if you're used to online stimulus. Okay? Last, 11:20 na pala. Last allegedly, 3 questions. Paki-explain po si Duque, hindi pa natatanggal, pati sa COVID vaccination siya ang pumili ng company, sayang yun sa Pfizer vaccines. It's one of those things, I think, that are the great current mysteries of, My theory, and it's only a theory, is that the president is not fully informed of what's going on. Ganun lang po yan. Dati, sabi ni Renato Baingco, sa subject na religion, lahat ng religions tinuturo sa school namin, Spanish, Rizal Studies, and Family Planning. Like I said, it was a different world. This is the reason why, sabi ni Ma'am Christina, This is the reason why dapat hindi tayo nag-censor ng ibang pananaw kasi it can help strengthen our resolve. Ayaw natin ng sheep mentality na sunod lang ng sunod. Good point. Sabi ni Amang Pulube, binigyan mo na ba ng taning ang speakership ni Velasco? Hindi. Why should I do that? Tinanong ni MLA walkthrough, bukas po pag-uusapan yung sa vaccination sa Pfizer. Hindi ba pinag-usapan namin kanina sa Karambola? Attorney, natanggal na po ba si Morente? Ganito ang update dyan. Okay? He's no longer in the office from what I hear. Hindi na po siya nagpapapasok, na-pull out na po yung ibang mga gamit niya. Pero somebody is issuing orders pa rin. Ay, Ma'am Marites, thank you. Thank you rin kay Jason. Somebody still issuing orders in his name, or he's still issuing orders through somebody else in the office. But the end is near, or it has already come, hindi lang po ina-announce. So, sabi ni Pinay, paparazzi, this is the effect of progress. Technologies ruled our lives that we even do not have the time to have decent conversation with our folks anymore, preferring to look at our phones rather than on people. But we can use technology to talk to each other like what we're doing now. Not related, sabi ni JB, nagpapansit ba si TP bago umalis ng Karambola? Okay talaga. Not immediately before he left. Pero parati naman nagpapapansit si TP. Sabi ni Chacha Pamor, the closure of ABS-CBN is one of the best things that happened in the TV industry. Sana di nila pinasok politics o naging fair sa pamamahayag at maayos na palabas and not ratings and profit-driven. But you know, one of the biggest changes that has been wrought because ABS-CBN is gone is our ability to think independently. ABS-CBN virtually chose our leaders for so many years. Mamimili lang sila ng mga storya o sinong sisiraan natin. Ayaw natin itong taong to, ayaw natin maging congressman to, maging senador to, labas-labas ng mga storya, paninira, ganyan. Even worse, it happens to other people too. Kasuhan natin to para hindi ito makatakbo. It happens. That's why I keep telling you, you don't judge a person based on one mistake. You judge a person based on the consistency of his actions. So, pero tama kayo. The closure of ABS-CBN does have repercussions. We need to make it last a little longer. Alam mo kung bakit? Given enough time, there will be more stations. There will be other stations that will have better programming. Online, we can actually, itong mga ginagawa natin na ganito, it's a lot better, especially since there's interaction. It's still lots and lots better than some of those pseudo-intellectual TV shows that we're seeing. Diba? Because here, you actually see people learn. The exchange of ideas is one way that we are learning. It's not just you guys who are learning from me. I'm learning from you as well. Yan, sabi ni Betlo, kaya pala di kita nakikita sa Luminous kasi unlike na like ko uli kanina, mukhang tinatrabaho ng FB followers ninyo. Okay, so thank you for affirming that. So now I need to make this announcement. Please check constantly kung naka-follow at naka-like pa kayo. Kung follow lang at wala pang like, please click the like button. And please ask all of your friends and family, if they haven't followed and liked yet, please do so. But if they have done so, to check kung naka-like and follow pa rin po sila. Please get other people to like and follow some more. I mean, malaki na bumabalik na yung dati naming reach at saka yung engagements namin. Alam mo ba dati, before they started trying to throttle us, ang reach ng Luminous is 6 to 8 million on an average day. On a hot day, meaning may exciting yung topics, our reach would be 10 to 13 million. Ngayon, it's just something like 4 to 6 million. Bumalik na yan for a while, our reach was only 2 million. Ngayon, umakyat na po uli. But we still need to keep working on this. Alam niyo kung bakit? Because I see that there is a difference, that people are actually learning. We a lot of people have stopped making easy judgments. Di ba? Hindi yung, ganito yung ginawa niya, therefore bad person. Hindi eh. Ngayon, mas nuanced na yung discussions natin. Kung napapansin ninyo. At saka, ewan ko ha, marami rin kasing nakamonitor sa Luminous, pero hindi tayo binibigyan ng credit. So, sometimes we say something, we make a certain argument, may makakakita, dadalhin sa Twitter, i-rephrase, tapos mukhang original nila. Pero it's still the same idea. So, madali nang kumalat. So, it's still good. I don't mind that we aren't given much credit. Pero, makikita mo na lang later on na, oy, this person is repeating something that we said. So, ibig sabihin, umaabot din sa kanila. That's why we strive to give good information. We vet our own data that we give to you. But in certain cases, if we're not sure, we will also tell you if we're not sure. Yan, sabi ni Brooklyn, may YouTube vlog yung mom ni AJ na may nakita siyang notes from AJ's teacher na feeling niya start ng pagka-brainwash ng anak niya. Start ng pagka-brainwash. You know, it can be through anything eh. It can be through something that you read. It can be through interaction on the internet. How are we going to stop all those other stimuli? Pag-iinitan natin, Professor? I disagree with this one. I love Ma'am Isay, but I am not sure that putting that kind of pressure on what our professors can teach and not teach, and the manner in which they do so, is, in the first place, it's illegal. And in the second, di ba, why would we want our teachers hobbled? Bakit natin ikakadena yung mga professors natin? Ganito po yan Information, it's raw. You give a person names, dates, places. This is what happened. This is what the person did. What you do with that information, how you're going to put that to use, that's the individual choice. But even if I spin it, for instance, I tell you that A met B. Instead of saying just A met B, I say A liked B and B hated A. That's a spin. Okay? It may be true, it may not be true. What you do with that story, how you make conclusions after that, that is your own choice. Kasi parang ang nangyayari dito, pag nare-recruit yung mga anak natin, we look for people to blame, people other than our own kid. But in the end, who made that choice? That kid. Especially that kid is over 18. Okay? Ayan, sabi ni Ma'am Sheremy Huber, hi Ma'am, tagal na ko yung hindi nakikita. Malapit na kasi yung election, kaya yung Facebook is trying to filter the information that's going out. Yeah. Habi ni Miss BD, a vlog. Pwede po bang kasuhan ng treason si Nadrilon at Angara dahil sa ginawa nilang insertion sa 2021 budget about PAW? Yung matagal ng followers ng Luminous, anong sagot po dyan? Yeah. Correct? Kahit hindi ko kayo naririnig on this end. Ano yung sagot? Treason happens only during wartime. We don't have a law that is about being disloyal to one's country during peacetime. Our lawmakers haven't done something like that because I suspect that a lot of the things they're doing might be related to that. Diba? Sino bang nagtatanong? Dilawan ba si Danny Con? Danny Concepcion? Danilo Concepcion? Dilawan? He was Amy Marcos's classmate in law school. I don't think I would characterize him as that. Although, you know naman my professors in the College of Law ran the whole rainbow. My constitutional and political law professor was Pecto Fernandez, who was the lawyer for Mrs. Marcos and was very rabidly pro-Marcos. And then on the other end we weren't sure, but there were some who served under GMA, Populutilia. There's some who had big roles in Noynoy Aquino's presidency. So I'm not sure what you mean if dilawan si Danny Con. He's my professor, but I don't think that he's yellow at all, or even any political color. Sabi ni Ian Roger Poral, speaking of ABS, may update na po ba kayo sa mga kaso nila at expose na nakita sa kamera? Wala po. Wala pa akong update on that one. They're trying to get back. And of course, they're with Zoe. Bakit? Nakalimutan niyo na ba? Nasa Zoe sila. So, yung mga nagsasabing baka makabalik ang ABS-CBN, nakabalik na sila. Nasa Zoe nga sila. Wala pong treason, attorney, pag nagbenta ka sa ibang bansa ng state secrets. Hindi po treason ng espionage. Sabi ni Ferlin Calma, huwag niyo po akong batiin. O di wag, ayaw mo pala Ferlin Calma na magpabati. Wala pa akong update kay Bicoy. And, yan, sabi ni Alpax the Great, who got it right, hindi po tayo nasa gyera. Sabi ni Flomen Ferrer, keep blogging. For all we know, lots of politicians also watching and hopefully PRRD too. Well, it's true that there are politicians who watch. That's true. But they don't want to be named. Sabi ni Ian, bravo for that achievement and the Luminous community. Is that an achievement? It's really just tiyaga. Media literacy and financial literacy should be part of the curriculum from primary to tertiary. I think that, how do you call this? Even before, we were taught, how to research. Of course, ngayon, mas madali with internet-based research. Hindi naturo yan sa atin. But, our kids are taught, and I don't know if they maintain it, but I think all of us are taught how to determine fact from fiction, how to do research, how to determine what is a good source or not, and academic sources, ganyan, how to make citations. Baka ang naaalala niyo lang is how to make the academic citation but not how to vet your source. I think that is something that is required teaching, but it's only a part of your subject. It's part of the research that you're taught in first year college when you start doing research papers, when you're taught how to do your thesis. The closure of, I read that. That is a subject na religion. Oh, we also talked about that. So, I think we've gone through all of your questions. Meron po bang bago? Yan, sabi ni Ma'am Rosemary Das, I don't watch TV for almost 7 years now, but COVID pandemic changed my life. Every day, my day starts with karambola, naka-loudspeaker pa, then my son asking about the insurgency, now aware na siya about the CPP. Nice. Ano po ba similarities ni Nogdares, Lenny po at Hontivirus? Sinasabi nila na incompetent si Lolo Art. Sa lagay na yan, incompetent. Paano kung hindi? E di, konektado na lahat ng isla ng bansa. O nga naman. Sabi ni Betlogy, legit UP Law po. Oo, si Amy? Yeah. And she graduated. At least, well, yeah, the general evidence points to her to having graduated. Update on Yonen. We've already updated on Karambola, so that's it so far for now. Okay, languages like Spanish and French. Ano yung sinasabi mo, Julian? Hindi po ba delikado kung mag face-to-face class na sa January, sabi ni JB? They're doing it only in MGCQ areas, and it's still up to the parents. Others can still opt to stay online classes, and it's experimental. And it will depend on whether the parents agree or not. So, kung mag-disagree, then I don't see what for. Wala po bang bagong distab strategy ang Dilaw? Sabi ni Olia A. Parang ang maingay lang ngayon ang radical left. Oo nga naman. Sabi ni Sam, I'm confused with the government's insistence for people to wear face shield but relaxed on social distancing. It's only here that face shields are required. I know. But it's so hard to police the social distancing sa totoo lang. Okay, last two comments. Dito po sa UK, yung mga elementary, face-to-face po. Sa school ng anak ko, wala na po naman nag-positive. Hi, thank you, Ma'am Sheremy. What are your thoughts on the archaeological find in Turkey called Göbekli Tepe that carbon dates at least 10,000 BC when it was deliberately buried? If true, it shatters the mainstream narrative. Marami na pong discoveries since Göbekli Tepe that already shattered the narrative. We are pushing back our calendar of civilization back at least another 5,000 years. So, ganito yan hindi naman po cast in stone lahat ng ating sinasabing dates. They're always, kumbaga, we establish it and then later on, we push it back when there is more evidence. So in this case, yes, there is evidence that the timelines for civilizations have to be pushed back, but I don't think that anybody is going to, to be sad about that, or it's that, saying na, ay, mali pala tayo. Wala pong ganon. In fact, we should be happy that the timeline is being pushed back. It means we're older than we thought. Okay? And finally, you want to say hi? No? History is written by the victor. Okay, let's make this the last. Pero sa mga yellows, hindi according to history, kung hindi according to his story ni Ninoy, Noynoy, at kung sino pang mga abnoy. I don't think we should keep calling the former president that because it insults those who are mentally challenged. And so in the meantime, maraming salamat sa pagsubaybay sa Luminous. Please don't forget to like and follow sa Luminous by Trixie Cruz-Angeles and Ahmed Paglinawan on Facebook. Don't forget to like and share this video if you haven't yet. You can actually share it more than once or twice. And sige, next time, gusto niyong pag-usapan yung Göbekli Tepe? Next time, I still have to read up on it. Matagal-tagal na since I last read on it. Baka may developments na. Sabi ni Ma'am Marites, good night na. Baka mapuyat at magka-migraine. Ayaw naming umabsent ka sa karambola. Sige na nga po. Thank you very much, everybody. Don't forget, like, share, and comment din sa Luminous. I have to keep nagging you guys to do this, even if you've already done it. At nagpapasalamat ako for everybody who did that. Good night, good night. We'll see you tomorrow on Karambola. And then tomorrow, ang ating live might be earlier. Para yung mga pwedeng makinig in the morning naman pwede sila. Para lumalawak din yung audience natin, particularly those who are abroad. Thank you very much again, especially dun sa mga nag-like and share. Magandang gabi.